It is 7:05 p.m. on December 18th, 2017. We'll call to order this meeting of the Brattleboro Development Review Board. The normal board, and I don't know if I've given you guys this spiel before, but generally we're a board of 7 and you have to get 4 votes to be successful. Even when we're a board of 4, you still have to get 4 votes to be successful. Generally what we do in situations like these is I cross my fingers and hope more people come. But if they don't, they will be available to watch the video of this presentation and vote, or you can get a little weather report from us and we can say this is what we're thinking. And if we all say we think this project is really great, we'll move forward tonight. And if people are ambivalent or it's not clear and you want to continue to have a full board present so you can address the concerns of what voters who are not here might have, we can do that too. So let me go through my opening remarks. At the Development Review Board, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrator decisions. Procedurally, we operate on the record. That means we take a clear record of testimony from you, the applicant, and any interested parties, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that because we're on the record, this is your opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, the court will not take or consider new testimony or evidence at its hearing. It will look at the evidence from this hearing, the regulations or applicable law, and determine if the evidence from this hearing supports the decisions that we made, or the law supports the decisions, I should say. Only interested people that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by the board, so I strongly encourage you all to speak up at this hearing. I'm going to note for the record there's nobody in the public, and I won't ask for public comment if nobody shows up. Because we're on the record, I'm going to ask that you swear or affirm that your testimony is going to be truthful. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed, which is 4 votes out of 7. I know I already told you guys this. I like to lead with that when we have this situation, but because it's part of my spiel, I'm going to say it again. If we don't have the full board present to hear your application, we will consider a request to continue your application to the next public meeting. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application, it is the written decision that controls your timeline for appeal. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town has no special status before this board. Documents provided to our board by the town planning department, town attorney, or any other town representative will be considered in exactly the same way as information from you, the applicant, and from any other interested parties. Mr. Bannon, has the meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Do we have any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications?
None.
The first order of business, we need to approve the minutes from our last meeting of November 20th, 2017. Can I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. The only application we have on for this evening's festivities is application 2017-173. That is Dead River Company for ENVY LLC. If you guys could just identify yourselves for the people at home.
Sure.
And tell us a little bit about your project, please.
I'll start.
Sure. Great. My name is Rick Fleming. I'm the market manager for Dead River Company for both Brattleboro and Keene. And we're here before you tonight proposing to build a bulk plant facility off of Glenorn Drive here in Brattleboro. We've had a bulk plant in downtown Brattleboro since 1972, located at 1 Putney Road. Presently at that bulk plant, we have 4 20,000-gallon underground heating oil tanks and 1 10,000-gallon underground heating oil tank.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I should have mentioned this earlier. I don't think my office technically abuts the land, and I know that you know my office is there,
Yeah.
but I'm just gonna note for the record that I own a commercial property that I think it's corner to corner with the subject parcel, and I don't view it's not the subject that's being built on, but it is the place where the tank farm that you're talking about is.
Yes.
And I'm just disclosing that for the board. I don't view it as a conflict of interest. But now we have that on the record. Pardon me for interrupting you.
That's okay. So we've been operating a bulk facility at 1 Putney Road since 1972. The 4 20,000-gallon tanks were taken out of service this past December 1st. They are at the end of their useful life, and due to state regulation, we had to take those tanks out of service. We're presently operating one 10,000-gallon underground tank for heating oil, and we need to build a bulk plant. And I reached out to Brian, and we kind of looked at the town, and initially we couldn't find a piece of property. We had a lot of difficulty identifying a plot of land that was zoned correctly to allow a bulk plant facility. However, earlier this fall, late summer, we identified the property on Glenarm Drive across the street from the old Vermont Yankee corporate office building. And we've employed John Goodell from SVE Associates to develop a plot plan. This piece of property requires Act 250 approval as well. So our first step in the process is coming before the board tonight, looking for your approval. What I'd like to do is turn it over to John and let him kind of go through the project.
Sounds good. So I'm John Goodell from SVE Associates, and just as Rick said, we're here seeking site plan approval and also Act 250 approval for the municipal portion of it from the DRB for a site on Glenarm Drive, which is off of Old Ferry Road. And how I thought I'd sort of structure my presentation tonight is first an overview. You got a little bit of an introduction. I'll go through a couple slides to give you a sense of the site and so forth. Then I want to tackle changes in that I handed out packets that have there's actually 3 plans, which sounds like a lot, but the changes are small on each. And they go, the 3 plans I handed you are the existing conditions plan. We show another easement line and did a little more topo. At proposed conditions plans, we tinkered with the stormwater primarily. And then the landscape plan, just because when you change the site plan, it changes the underlying material of that also. And I'm going to explain those changes in more detail.
Before you get into your detail, can we ask the TV cameraman if the screen presentation is something you can capture?
I can see 3/4 of the PowerPoint.
Can we just adjust this so that if somebody's watching this on television, is that too far to the left? Is that the issue?
That's great.
Like that?
That works.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Just taking care of our loyal viewers, we want to keep our ratings up over there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I don't know if you care if I sit or stand in this process.
Whatever you're more comfortable with.
Okay. Maybe I'll start with standing and then I'll usually stand, but I think better if I'm on my feet. Okay, so let's move on to, hopefully this all works as it should. Oops. Guess you're gonna get a preview.
They call that a teaser.
Yes. Okay, so there's the second slide. And the point of this and the site plan here is just to get you oriented.
Rick, could you take care of the lights? There's a switch right over there, just on this side. Yeah, perfect.
There we go.
Thank you.
Good. Hopefully this is not going to be touchy all night. But okay, so this is the parcel here. This for everybody. This is Old Ferry Road here, and then Glenarm Drive is this piece here. This is the UPS building and existing parking lot. And the site will be largely covering the parking lot and then extending out this way with our stormwater basins here and over here. And then what else is, just happens to be shown, this is from the Vermont A&R Atlas. It shows some existing stormwater piping, which this project will have a state stormwater permit, but just for background, there's a off-site drainage that drains an area from the highway that flows under Old Ferry Road. Daylight's down here on our site, and then as they show on their map, actually comes down and soaks in. There's a natural pond, and these soils are well-drained sands and gravels, which is why it works so well. And then the other, that's one part of the stormwater, existing stormwater system. The other piece is there's two catch basins, one there and one there, that tie into this drainage that flows down and over like that, and then eventually right out to the Connecticut River. So kind of a split system on the stormwater side. So in a nutshell, that's the parcel we're talking about. As I alluded to, we've made some changes since the original submittal on existing conditions plan and proposed conditions plan. So I thought I'd walk through those first. Just when you get handed a packet, there's always, you want to know what I'm handing you. So we'll go through that. Okay. So on the existing conditions plan, two items. Primarily, we show we've had some discussions with the power company about work within their easement. I'll use this also as a supplement. We basically just showed a little more of the power easement, which was helpful for them, and also it clarified an issue that had come up from the Alta survey that was done for the parcel that had shown an easement as claimed by the power company, and then also an original easement. And what we've cleaned this up after discussions with the power company to show the easement as they concur that it exists presently. And so now we have our design limits to work around. So that's one change, is we show that easement. And then also we did a little more topography just to improve the resolution right in the center, right around this existing stormwater pond. There's a little knob of trees, which the previous plan was accurate, but not as detailed as we wanted it for our plan. So kind of nuts and bolts stuff, but that's what happened on that. On the next one. Oops. Oh, okay, actually, this is backup one.
Yeah.
So
The
this,
existing conditions plan, I just had a question if it's all right.
you bet.
There's a point, it's sort of an odd-shaped piece of concrete near that power company
Uh-huh.
easement. Where would the natural pond occur, sort of in relation to that, using that as a signpost?
Sure, it's, let's try the laser. So the detention basin I'm talking about for future treatment?
No, I'm looking at the existing conditions, and there's just
Oh.
this odd-shaped thing, and it says it's identified as concrete, and I just
Yes.
thought that might, if I could sort of figure out where that drainage is in relation to that.
You bet. So first, what that odd-shaped thing is it is a concrete swale. There's a fairly steep bank, maybe it's
Okay.
6 feet, that corner of the parking lot all sheets over there. So probably it eroded at some point. They put that in to go down the
Okay.
bank. But then once it goes to the bottom of the bank, right
Yeah.
there, then it's fairly gentle. You're looking at the contours. You can probably see it on the map
Yep.
you have. And then the pond, the natural pond,
Okay.
the natural infiltration pond's way down here.
Oh, okay.
So it's this whole great big area, which, with all things, if there was enough water, there is a flow path that likely goes around Webster Trucking's
Yep.
parking lot. But there's no indication that it's overflown recently. Okay, so this was as submitted, and I'm just being rigorously correct here, which looks, you can see we didn't show this little piece of easement off here. And now with the as submitted version of the location existing conditions, you can see up here, there's this, we show the easement, and the easement, as agreed with the power company, has a jog in it, and so forth. There's a little more resolution in this spot here. So that's really all that's going on the existing conditions plan. And then the revisions on the proposed site plan. And this was in part, was part design, but also part from discussions we had with the power company. And the power company did send a letter just asking for the board to basically allow their input prior to a decision. They will have ample opportunity in the 250 process directly and specifically for transmission facilities, but we have a good working relationship, with them, and it's more, I think, at this point, a matter of process that they just want any changes whatsoever to go through their full engineering review, which we are doing, presently. Okay, so the changes on the proposed conditions plan, or the site plan we're reviewing tonight, from that which came in your first packets and that I've just put in front of you, include the following. Probably the big one, top laser, is change from a stormwater swale that went, it was a gentle swale, fairly wide, going around this side of the site to an infiltration basin over here. And coupled with that, just to hit the big ticket item right up front, we basically pulled that corner of the site out of the power easement, is effectively what's going on now. We just stopped, we got out of to get out of the issue of whether it was allowable or not type of discussion. And also an infiltration basin, since we've completed the infiltration testing, and it was very positive, aligns with what the site currently does. These are well-drained soils. There's a lot of infiltration going on there, as here as well as downslope, and so we're mimicking, the existing condition plus, because we're also looking to do our treatment within that. So, change from a swale to a basin on this side, and then number 2. Also, there was some associated stormwater piping changes that show up in the lot. So we have a couple of catch basins. This basin will have an overflow that will go to where the existing piping is. So again, we basically intercept our flow in the middle of the site, treat it, infiltrate it, and then if there is a discharge for the very largest storms, then it would continue on its way to where it went previously. So some piping changes, and also with that we moved some of the oil water separators and the septic piping around a little bit, but it's all the same elements are basically right in similar places to where they were. But again, that just helped us tighten up this corner and pull the project out of the power easement area. It just will make for a cleaner review with their engineering group. Okay, so that was 2. And then on the change impacting the landscape plan, and again, for this same reason, we previously had, hopefully you can see this when I point at this, 2 larger trees up on this end of the site, but the easement line cuts right across, and again, rather than pick an obvious, make an obvious controversy of planting some larger trees in the power easement when their easement directly says they have the right to clear the entire thing. We've replaced those with an equivalent, per the town zoning, basically replacing 2 large trees with 4 large bushes. So 4 forsythia, basically, to replace the trees. So that is change number 3 that I'm talking about. And that entire change is in this corner. So there's a little clump of 3 that are shown on your plan now, and we also tacked one more, number 4, onto the clump of forsythia that are right next to it. Whereas near that clump of 3 previously we had 2 trees. So just to cover all the details here. I guess that's it. And then lastly, again, with the same goal of just reducing our footprint in the easement area, and it actually aligns well with our Vermont stormwater rules and their guidance of doing infiltration where you can, we'll be infiltrating the rooftop runoff from the 2 proposed buildings. So there's a basin, there's 2 dash lines going to a circle over near, actually right in that existing concrete swale area that will be, open bottom basin. It'll collect the surge from the rooftop, and then it'll gradually soak in. Okay. Okay, and again, just to sort of reiterate what I said, this is what was submitted. We had this swale up here, and then there was a couple of trees here, and then you can see how this corner previously was more squared off, and we just made it more rounded, kind of pulled our site out of that easement area. And also we had fill and a culvert extension, which had previously extended out into the easement area, so we pulled all that back. That's basically what's going on there. Oops. And then this is the plan as presented in front of you. Again, our basin, infiltration basin here, 4 forsythia over here, and some piping changes in this area here. Okay. And actually, maybe this is let me just see what my next slide is here. Okay. Just because I have the slide here, I'll take a minute. I think I've pretty well covered the basic idea, but just to give you a little more orientation. So now we've talked about the existing condition plan changes, final conditions plan changes. We're looking at the site plan we're here to review. And this project comes in 3 phases as presented. And the first phase of the project would be basically clear, remove the existing pavement, and then it would build the propane storage, which is over on this side, and then the distillate storage, which are these tanks right here, and that's a sunken concrete containment area for the distillate. And it would include the entire lot area, the yard area, fenced in, and for phase 1, there would be an office trailer, basically for folks to come in and get their slips in the morning and go on with the work. So basically, so they can be up and running because they need this facility next year. And then I think we presented it as 2020 for phase 2, which includes adding this structure here, this long, thin structure right here, which is the truck wash structure, which includes light maintenance, fixing a light bulb, no oil changes, no heavy maintenance of any kind, but to the extent that they can do simple practical things, that's what it's for. And then also there is a wash bay, and that wash bay, the water from that goes through a grit separator, oil water separator, and then discharges to the sanitary sewer for the truck wash. From inside the building, that's what this piping is showing. It goes down to this grit tank and oil water separator, and is a connection to the sanitary sewer. Again, for the inside, truck washing only. And also on this plan, there is a truck fueling area. So there's a place, basically a gas pump or diesel pump for trucks, which is right here in the corner. And then also the dumpster location is right here on this side of the building. In the previous plan, we had it on this end of the building, or just off that building over here. So we've pulled that around a little bit. But,
It's diesel fuel.
right, just diesel fuel. Yes, just for, right, this is for delivery trucks. And this whole area is a secure area.
Could I ask you on those, just to clarify, what is the visual symbol for those diesel? I just can't quite see it on my.
Yeah, there's a P, well, actually, it's a,
Oh,
P
yes.
for pump and then tank.
Okay.
So there's a tank and a pump is effectively what's going on.
Okay, I see P and then is it 10?
Yes, take 10, if you look over on the tank schedule on the side. it's
Oh, okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Right,
Thank you
and it's
very much.
double walled, kind of a standard
I
diesel
mean,
pump
in
setup.
terms of the whole thing, it doesn't seem that large, but, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 500 gallon tank, which is not,
In comparison to the other tanks.
yeah.
So that's a site, and then the square next to it that has sort of an X through it, is that a?
Okay, so the square next to it is a concrete pad
Okay,
that drains to an oil water separator.
okay.
And then that, because that is open to the, to rain.
Yes.
But, so it goes through an oil water separator and then it goes into the drainage that leads to the river. So that is under our state permit. That's, of course, a hot spot for stormwater runoff. And so one aspect of that is that you're not allowed to send that to infiltration. So that's why we ran it through a oil water separator and then out to the river drainage.
Excuse me,
Yep.
I think I missed something. The phase one is the propane tanks and the oil storage in the center of the
Yes.
little square.
Yeah, and why don't I go right through all three phases at once before I get distracted? So let's.
Okay,
So, build the fence and the whole lot. Build the tanks, build the propane tanks, put this office trailer in, phase one. Phase two, add the truck wash. Still, you're entirely within the fenced-in area. Phase three, further down the road, they're not exactly, they don't have a hard date for it, but they do, it would work well for them, is to add the office building over here, and then at that time, add the associated parking and paving that would all go with this office building. And that paving is this shading, right over to here. And just since we're talking about this area, part of the agreement for the purchase of the land is that the current owner maintains 75 spaces. So these would be attributed for their future use if they need them, or for allocated to them to revise as they so choose. I guess I should be clear about one more piece, which is with phase one, you build all this, and then they also have to put the access in to these spaces, which is right here, a new curb cut, just because this is a secured area. This will be fenced and have a key code and so forth. So phase one includes this entire fence and the gravel, and then also it does also include just the entrance. It would just be like it is right now, a gravel parking lot.
The way it's phrased, I guess, on your proposed condition, install new paved entrance, phase one.
Correct.
Could I just jump on, back in phase one, is this, just so I know, is the P and the 10, the pump and the tank, are those part of phase one then?
Yeah, actually,
Yes.
okay.
Those
yeah.
are
Okay,
part of it.
thank you.
Yeah, basically a fully functioning delivery vehicle site. With an office trailer, because that'll work for a couple of years, and then clearly they need, it's an essential part of their operation that they have a truck wash, so that's a high priority, getting phase two done as well. Okay, so those are the changes, and that's also the overview. The landscaping does show on here. Again, we basically followed the zoning in terms of the numbers of plants. We tried to reuse the existing plantings, or leave them just as they are, because some nice oak trees and so forth. Down along Glen Orne. talked about stormwater, we talked about changes. And, okay, so that I guess completes the sort of introduction and overview, but the last part of the packet I handed you was some more information on traffic. And okay. In big picture, this is not a large traffic generator. But even so, we are seeking Act 250 municipal approval for the Act 250, or Act 250 approval for the municipal piece. And I wanted to be sure I brought some more resolution or data to that. So maybe that's overkill what I gave you, but I'll walk through it just so. Essentially, I'm showing you the data I used to arrive at this conclusion. The points on the PowerPoint are dovetail with the same 7 points on that first page of the supplemental. And they basically go as follows, just on the topic of this project and traffic. So, part one is, as Rick mentioned, this is not a brand new project coming to town. It's actually largely moving similar traffic flow from the Walnut Street site to the Old Ferry Road or for the Glen site. Currently their propane comes from out of town, Keene and Berniston areas. So that piece of it, I mean, there may be some interactions, but regardless, I think all would agree that getting that piece of traffic out of this more congested area is a net positive. And on the detail, I provided a little more, some numbers and so forth, but that's effectively the point I'm looking to make there. Also, I mean, even though it's probably intuitive, this is actually a seasonal business in terms of the higher amounts of traffic. Certainly deliveries drop way off in the late spring, summer, early fall, etc. But just considering the overall year impact, it is a seasonal type business. So, with further discussions, getting a little more resolution about exactly how they run their operations, I had 42 vehicles as a peak hour, 42 light vehicles as a peak hour number on Schedule D with the application, and that's a bit too conservative, truly, in that includes delivery vehicles which actually arrive at the site 6 to 7, and they're supposed to be on their way well before employees and service techs arrive in that 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. window. So that's effectively what I'm saying there is that 32, and these are all small numbers, truly, but I wanted to get it closer to what an accurate estimate is for that period. Okay, with 22 arriving also. And then also number 4, traffic arriving in a largely expected to arrive at Old Ferry from US 5 south. Basically making the point that, again, that is not typically the peak hour for that intersection anyways. But even so, it's also a right-hand turn off of Route 5. It's a very efficient flow path to add these vehicles to as well. Okay, and some of the data I show you there, and I'll show the next screen has the same map you have and so forth. Basically shows a decline from historical levels along Old Ferry Road. I'll talk more about that when I get to the next slide. And then similarly, the available V-Trans info also shows it started to decline from the 2006 to 2010 period, and then it's largely been flat since then. But again, compared to historical levels of traffic, and also keeping in mind the number of vehicles we're talking about here, it only adds to the confidence that this project is not significant impact on the traffic for that area. And point 7 is where I'm arriving at that conclusion. And then, okay, and I labeled them on the plan you have there in front of you, but just for some clarity, that X094, which is the VTrans code for a counter location, that one is here, and that one had the data from 2005, I think, through 2009. It's in the back of your packet there, showing that decline. Even so, 2009 they were talking 2,200 vehicles per day. It's labeled on your packet. There's like a 313-02773 something. Was a spot count they did in 2016. So there's some current data that gives you a little resolution about what's actually going on that road. And that one's on the other side of the entrance to CNS. So it would have been helpful if they just happened to have a 2016 average daily for this site, but they don't. So I'm trying to gather the data that's available to continue to reinforce that there's a bunch of traffic here, site distances are good, the intersection is good, and that this is a very small scale project compared to everything else that's going on around it.
Am I correct that all of the traffic data precedes the change in use of the landfill, the former landfill?
Well, this is 2016, and I'm not sure how that timing lines up with that.
Does anybody remember? I can't remember when they slowed down. But it's likely that traffic's decreased at least in some measure even since this data was recorded.
And I would think that it's decreased since the training center's closed up there for Vermont Yankee also.
Right. When was that? Do you know?
Yeah.
That's,
It's been closed 2 years.
yeah,
So that'd be 3 years ago.
that's 3, yeah.
Okay.
Right, so I was searching for data, true data, that would support this. And I guess to your point, yes.
I mean, it's possible it's going to go way down even from the data you presented us.
That's entirely possible, yes. Or drop further.
Right.
But just for the bigger picture, this site over here, which is the last one, the X261, is the third one I included in there. Again, they had numbers of, say, approximately 10,900 in the 2006 range, and then it was in the low 8,000s from 2010 to now. So dropped and then kind of flat since. Again, for 32 trucks, of which 22 or 32 peak hour vehicles, of which 22 are arriving, and then in theory we're talking about 10 more service techs coming. It's not significant, for this intersection or for the flows that are going on around it. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to, and then the VTrans sheets in the back of your packet and so forth just reflect the numbers that support effectively what I'm saying. Okay, and that takes me down to the kind of going through the site plan review criteria page. I don't know if there's any questions along the lines at this point, or
It's very informative.
Can I just add a couple things about site plan, just so I can learn? The reason the idea is that the majority of the developed area is a gravel.
yes.
So it's pre-existing for the most part, or?
No, it's the existing pavement
Yeah.
is just, there's a paved parking lot was there.
Yeah.
All this is existing gravel, but the
Yeah.
existing pavement ends about here.
Okay.
So this piece, about 2/3 of the site is pavement,
Yeah.
but it's kind of broken and it's not quite right, and it's
Okay.
not, so they don't really need an acre plus of pavement
Okay.
for their operations. They're completely happy with gravel.
Yeah.
And I think you have a track record using gravel other places too, or?
And most of our other bulk facilities, the bulk facilities are gravel.
Right. But just one point which you may look at this and think, boy, that's a big area. And kind of what's going on here? We've got and effectively what that is a lot of that's about turning radius.
Okay.
And one of their design criteria is that for these larger propane trucks, they want them to come in, circle, drop the load, and they don't back up.
I see what you're saying.
Same goes for the dropping off the distillate. They just don't want these guys, because the transports could be coming, most any hour, day or night. So you just want them nice, clean through, and they've had good success with that in other places. So that's really what drives the size. When you put those turning radiuses on there, we're right up here against this fence, and of course, we have our software and so forth. I mean, probably drivers can do even better, but they'll just get lined up a little bit better. But that's a big ticket item.
So you're tearing up existing concrete, replacing it with gravel.
Or existing pavement and replacing
Pavement,
it
yes.
with asphalt pavement.
And then the design with these tanks is these concrete pads, that's essentially where the truck sort of parks while it's doing the loading or unloading.
That's right.
Okay.
And all those pads drain into the containment. So it's a manual operation. Whenever it rains, there's folks that are going to be tasked with checking that for a sheen before it can be released. And both on both sides. Actually, anywhere there's fueling going on here, not for the propane because that doesn't have that issue, but it drains into the containment. It's inspected. Valve is open before it's released, and then that drainage would go through an oil water separator, and then to the river drainage beyond that. So. Any other questions on the?
Could you discuss lighting?
Oh, you bet. Or we'll get it in the review criteria, but it only makes sense to. We have a big area, and the phase 3 parking lot, that's a little more straightforward in that when they get to phase 3, we show one light there. Oh, there's an existing light over on this side. It shows a little better on the landscape plan. And basically what we're looking to provide a uniform low level of light for that parking lot. That's straightforward. That matches up well with the zoning guidance. Meaning not a large differential in light where people are walking, because that's problematic for safety purposes, and that you don't want something very bright and then going between very bright and not very bright. The scenario for the bulk plant is different in that, first of all, it's a security area, and it has, of course, a variety of uses. Transports could be arriving anytime, day or night. So some amount of lighting just for security and for them is needed, but specifically, as we put in our original application, at point locations under the canopy where bulk deliveries or transports are arriving. So on this pad over here, and on this pad over here, to have either motion activated or some combination of motion activated and lights on a timer for a brighter lighting. So there would be brighter lighting at those times for these areas, each of the loading areas, and then there'll be some point lighting over by the by the building as well. And I guess the major takeaway there is that we're looking to use smart lighting, incorporate smart lighting into our site to try and minimize the time that brighter lights have to be on. We'll maintain a uniform, or to the extent that we can manage it, uniform lower level of light, but balance that with the need for when folks are loading or unloading, they need good light around their vehicles. And I guess the final photometrics, we requested that that would be administratively reviewed and we were working, with Brian on this concept of trying to have an intelligent lighting plan, because it's a slightly unusual site by the nature of their use. You need low level, very low level, minimal for security, but then you need lights that come on when a transport arrives.
And then could I just ask you on your landscape and lighting plan, the way it reads is it looks like there's 2 pole lights, using your legend there, 2 pole lights at the propane side, 1 pole light and canopy light at the oil storage tank area,
Yep.
and then I won't refer to phase 2 or phase 3 yet. It's talking about retaining existing light and pole, I guess, in 2 locations.
Yeah, I mean, there are existing lights, which they are actually turned off right now, but there are some lights along the sidewalk which have been effective at, they were designed for that sidewalk with appropriate height and appropriate position and so forth. So it didn't make too much sense to tear them out and put something else right in their place.
Will they be right near the new curb cut?
The existing lights, or?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, they're on the other
Where
side of
is
the
it?
sidewalk. So if you look at the where the sidewalk shows on the bottom of the.
Oh, I see.
yeah,
Okay.
There's those 2 lights there.
So will you illuminate the entrance?
There's no other specific lighting for this entrance here. And there is some light that comes off the sidewalk lighting. And again, there's some light that'll be coming off the building for the overall site lighting. But again, for the most part, they don't have a need for a lot of the time to have this whole area lit up. It's only when someone's doing something, loading, unloading, or so forth. And a little more during working hours in this time of year when it's dark at 5. But once they're done at 6 or 7, then any of the brighter canopy lights here could be turned off, and there'd just be more background. And just to be clear, that lighting over on the parking lot side would go in when phase 3 was built.
Are you content to move on?
I just have curious questions,
No, that's fine. I just don't want to have him go on to the site plan review before you're done with the lighting.
Oh, no, I'm done.
Okay. Why don't we move on into
Okay.
the site plan review?
So I just wrote them down here because sometimes it helps, but yeah, I guess under compatibility, the big ticket, or the primary theme is that this is an allowed use in an industrial area. So it lines up well with heavy traffic, or heavy trucks moving around this area. We have good sight distances. And so it's taken a long time actually for them to find a spot that was compatible with everything else. And so they're quite pleased that they did, get this place.
It used to be a pile of garbage.
Is it really?
Well, I mean, there used to be the landfill right next door.
Or,
I don't think the landfill's gone anymore.
Huh? No, it was once upon a time.
Yes.
or
There's-
yeah, a little
there's-
further down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Yeah. Because I mean, the training center is across the street.
Right.
And again, character of area and compatibility of site. I mean, just looking at the zoning review, it is an allowed use, but it is in character with the area. And similarly, as we talked about traffic, the site has capability for it. Also, stormwater. It's hard to find sometimes in Vermont, well-drained soils. And then we talked quite a bit about traffic, but again, the larger themes that this is not it's a largely distributed use. You have some folks arriving during 12 employees and service techs arriving in that window, but beyond that, it's individual drivers doing the runs. And it's the numbers we have there are assuming they're all based out of here. There's a lot of interaction. Drivers may leave this site and then refill at another site also. But at some point you have to bound it. You can't model every scenario. But effectively, it's not a large traffic generator, and the site has excellent capacity to handle this traffic. Access and circulation. Again, we have a controlled site. Although even within that, access and circulation was a very important piece of the design for the Dead River Company, of making sure that these are large trucks and they need a good amount of area to maneuver so that they aren't, you could do it in a smaller site if people back up, but then you have to deal with everything that's associated with that. And it snows and tires spin and all kinds of things that make that difficult. Similarly, on access and circulation, the phase 3 includes a more typical building parking lot sort of layout where we provide handicap parking, and that will be, of course, meet ADA requirements and be accessible. There is, to the extent that there is, we maintain the existing corridor of the sidewalk that leads to the other side of the street for the overflow parking. Should they, or whoever owns this building over on the other side of the street, chooses to use it. So there's lighting, and we're maintaining the existing route for the pedestrians if there is a need for that. And incidentally, we looked at the number of spaces at the VY Training Center, and that site meets the ordinance as it sits now. So this truly is a supplemental parking lot.
There's some requirement that you maintain some for them, right?
Yes, 75 spaces is part of the purchase and sale. So that's why we aren't developing anything. Plus, they don't need it. But, and I guess that's just one more. It works out that they don't need all that. Okay, parking and loading. We touched on that. I think we probably have largely covered that. The phase 3 shows 25 spaces, future spaces. Okay.
John, can you maybe talk about the fire department arrangement?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a bullet point here that we hit that on or not.
I don't mean to jump ahead, I
think you put it under performance standards. Right.
We'll talk
And
about
it's in the
Yeah, that's
packet,
where I
maybe.
found it, yeah.
Okay, but let's see if I have it here anywhere. Sure.
Can I just ask a question about, it seems silly, but there was a mention of bathroom in the
Trailer or?
Yeah, the trailer.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask Brian about, is there a septic issue, or is that
To town sewer, town water.
a town sewer is on that site?
Yes.
Old Fair. Okay.
Yep, it's right out there.
All right. It just popped in my head.
Yep. Now we do show a connection between this
Oh, okay.
and going out to the street. And actually, I'll hit the fire department now. Or I'll talk about it now, and we'll see it again. I think.
We can wait until you get there. I don't want to make you go out of order.
Okay. So landscaping and screening. Now that I moved the sheet, we've largely gone through that, but effectively we're largely meeting the requirements of the zoning for our site. We didn't add lighting and add landscaping and do a lot of things for the 75 spaces that truly we don't know what's going to happen with them at this point. Because it truly is an overflow lot, which may just sit there like that, like it has or not. But when you go out and you look at this, the existing parking lot and what it is right now, you realize what a bad idea it is to pave a bunch of spaces that don't get used, because it's broken and there's grass going up through it, and it's a maintenance item. So, right, and so so I mentioned that change, about 4 forsythia bushes instead of 2 conifers, because they're in this, they're right in the corner of the power easement over here, and then retaining as much as possible the existing and supplementing it as well. So on stormwater, I have a better plan here. Now, of course, in terms of the town zoning, we are going to get a 3-95 operating permit or operational permit for stormwater runoff from our new impervious surfaces. And it's a little bit of a complicated mix of things, because this existing site has an old stormwater permit on it, and then where we add new impervious, that has to be treated in current standards. So it's fairly busy, but the big ticket, or the broad brush items are the new impervious on this side drains with the contours down to this corner, and then flows into this forebay, and then this is a infiltration basin, where the vast majority of storms are going to soak in. But there is an overflow at the far end, which then reconnects to where the current connection is for the water that comes through the site. Because there is, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, there is drainage that comes from off-site, the other side of Old Ferry Road, which ties to a culvert at the highway that flows this way, flows under Old Ferry Road over here, comes into an existing drain manhole. We show the existing line that goes right across the site, but you don't want to leave a large diameter stormwater pipe under a new facility. So as a point of design, we routed it around, and over here it would pick up any overflow from the basin. And same goes, for this area, we show a new basin, favoring infiltration, in this corner, and then also, and incidentally, it aligns with, there's a new stormwater rule from the state of Vermont also that challenges you now more to tell them why you can't do infiltration. So they've upped the game a little bit. It's not you can just choose the treatment you want. There's a little more stringent sort of process you go through. So if every site was like this, it would be helpful. But anyhow, so this aligns with our requirement for this clean runoff coming off these 2 roofs would go into an infiltration basin behind them as well. And then again, the containment around the fuel storage areas per code and requirements, but provides a very positive and secure means of ensuring that runoff gets checked. So any drips or spills, and then of course they certainly work hard not to have that happen, but that would happen on these pads, and then when it rains on it, drains in here, and so forth. And where the cost of that is, of course, is in manpower. That becomes a ongoing maintenance item. But for a big site like this, that makes sense, for them to do it for that assurance. Oh, and snow storage. So on the previous plan, we had snow storage in this corner, and then we had snow storage in this corner here. And the power company had some concerns about the finer details of that. So we moved that storage over to this corner. So we now have 2 24-foot wide gates on this end for snow storage in this end and this end. There is actually, there will be other capacity over the forebay. That would be a fine area also to store snow as well. Okay, but ultimately we are required to get a state permit. Under renewable energy resources, we do show for phase 3 electric chargers. Exactly recall. Not that that's, well, I guess that supports that. Oh, here they are. I guess they're right. I think they're right here in our legend, maybe. Oh, I can't. Oh, of course not.
I'll make a comment about the state's requirements for electrical charging parking spots. I find it interesting the state requires that. And it'd be interesting to see if they would encourage people who are building new roofs to stick solar panels on them, but I don't know.
Yeah, actually, I think this is just a local, a town zoning
Oh, is it?
requirement for
It's
the charging.
yeah, it flows from state statute though.
I'm certainly in support of promoting renewable energy, and I think it's like, if you're gonna build a new roof, you know, not that you could force people to do it, but to seriously consider throwing some panels up there that even provide, you know, financial offset for the person building the building for electrical use.
Am I wrong, Brian?
No, it's a local requirement, and then there's an Act 250 stretch code requirement as
Okay.
well.
Oh, so it's not a state requirement.
No, it is, but we incorporated it into our local ordinance, but even if we didn't have it.
Even if we didn't have it, if the project was large enough, the state would kick in to require it.
And actually, the history there, it's not even necessarily size, it's just this site has an Act 250 on it already. So this is going to be an amendment to that. And those 2 charging stations are right over here, right in front of the building. There's a note.
And obviously, that would be part of phase 3.
Phase 3, yes, that's right. Well, so under renewable, I think that's, I don't know that I have too many other things to say. Under energy conservation, at some level, the project itself makes their system more efficient in that you have fewer delivery trucks going further out to plants to get fuel and then bring them back. So, I mean, which only makes sense. They wouldn't do it if it wasn't more efficient. But then, of course, within that, we also have kind of a standard kit of things which are Act 250 requirements in terms of the construction of these buildings will be, you know, based on the commercial CBES, commercial building energy standards, and so forth. Okay, on exterior lighting, we largely covered that, but all LED cutoff lights with, with smart features where applicable. Again, just because the bulk plant itself has a unique sort of set of criteria that it needs, and since the technology is available, that's a good fit for how you can achieve that. Okay, signs. So there will be a 2-foot by 4-foot sign just mounted on the gate. Again, just for the people that come to the site or transport drivers to make sure they're delivering to the right spot. Okay, and then under performance standards, so on those that I list there are noise in keeping with what's there in terms of the traffic, glare shouldn't be an issue, odors shouldn't be an issue. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's any particular odor associated with a bulk plant. Yeah, I think so. Vibration, again, not applicable really, or electrical interference, waste storage, particulate matter, I truncated it to dust, but particles in the air, again, all shouldn't be generated. On the next sheet, though, okay, but under flammable hazardous, this is a bulk storage plant, of course. So safety is a #1 question about this entire project, from the get-go. That's why they're looking at things about like not having trucks back up. Rick has met with the fire department, and they will be working together because as a requirement for building a bulk plant, there's a number of codes apply, but NFPA 58 is a big one for the propane storage. They have to do a fire safety analysis. And that, the fire department has a piece of that, and then they do a piece of that. And it's taking that look at, that hard technical look at, how you make this place safe. Distances to other things and response times and all those criteria. Again, the response from the fire department was that they were comfortable with this location, and there was a few things that Dead River agreed to do some training, for them. Of course, they'll be working together on the FSA, but then training and also purchase some additional hose, windsock, again, just so they know in the event there is any release, around the propane area. So does that answer your questions on the fire department, or? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then cumulative impact, again, for just the part of town they're in the right part of the town to be doing an industrial site like this. This is why it's zoned industrial. So cumulative impacts will not be excessive and are in keeping with what that area is all about. And then similarly for the municipal plan and laws, an allowed use in an industrial zone. And I think that's the end of. I have some pictures and things. Brent's doing this now.
They had the laptop and the remote, they probably just stopped talking to each other. That's what computers do for us.
Anything else really of great interest? That's just a shot from kind of out near the intersection of this is Old Ferry Road, looking up to the garage.
What's all that green stuff?
A bunch of lawn, but of course these trees remain. They're shown on the site plan. Those are the trees that will remain on the site plan.
Just a little cabin fever humor there.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So that's
Okay, that's Orne Road there.
yes. That's Glenorn.
Glenmore, yes.
And then
Parking lot.
yeah.
See if he has any shots of the parking lot with the weeds growing up
Well, there
through
you
the
go. You can see
asphalt.
Yeah, so that's what happens when parking lots where. So I don't know if there's any other questions or.
Brent, can you talk about procedurally how we deal with phased projects?
The decision is going to have a description of each phase. Some of these will require, or the board could allow for administrative approval of some aspects like the actual design of the office building. You could offer some flexibility for administrative approval of modifications to the lighting plan going forward. Administrative approval for changes to the stormwater plan to meet the national grid requirements.
If there are, I don't expect significant changes at this point, and that we basically have a little bit of cut in the easement here, and we have a little bit of grading on this edge of the easement. It's pretty benign for work within that. But yes, things we had talked about was administrative approval for the photometrics for the lighting plan, administrative approval, if possible, of the building exteriors for once they have a design and so forth. I mean, this will be the footprint, and an attractive industrial area building is effectively what they're looking for. I think the for the industrial zone, it's a fairly wide range of what's allowable. But that was the second one, is if we could get that administrative approval, for the actual materials for those buildings.
And we're not sure when that is going to happen. We're located on Main Street, right? One Putney Road, the end of Main Street, has good visibility. Our challenge is we've outgrown the space that we have down there for the bulk facility. We added propane 3.5 years ago. and that added 3 additional trucks. We're not able to put propane on our site downtown. There's no place for it. So right now we're traveling to Keene or we're traveling down to Bernston to bring that product into Brattleboro to service our customers here. So we need a space where we can put all of this together. That's why we are looking at this site.
Well, the truck wash is fairly important, or
The truck wash will probably happen. It won't happen in year 1.
right.
When we build the bulk plant, but it probably will happen in year 2.
Where would the trucks get washed in the interim? I guess just as a curious question.
They get washed down in Bernston.
Oh,
They get washed over in Keene. If you ever go down Walnut Street at 8 o'clock in the morning, you'll see what it's like. Our lot's full, and occasionally we'll have a transport show up, and they can't drive into the Walnut Street facility. We actually have to pull down the right side of Walnut Street and back a truck into our back parking lot. We've been doing that since 1972.
Gotta keep those CDL drivers sharp.
It does. It's a challenge. It can be, especially when there's cars parked illegally on Walnut Street. We can't get in.
So how would that work if you left your office there for any length of time? Would you be having drivers pulling up to the office still coming?
No, drivers would be reporting to this facility, and that's why we put in the.
Oh, you'll have the trailer.
We'd have the trailer there until we're able to get the truck wash built, and then when we build the truck wash, we put a room in there. The reason we need a spot, obviously, is for a restroom, a meeting room, and then all of our delivery trucks are equipped with electronic handheld devices, and all of our meter tickets go into that handheld device, and we need docking stations so that can download overnight. So that's why we'd be putting in the trailer for a short period of time.
I suppose we ought to address there's no public here. I'll just note that no one has arrived since we started. But we do have the letter from the, I don't know if you'd call it an abutter, but the owner of the easement, National Grid. And what National Grid proposed was that
do you want to just read it?
well, it's a little, there's an error here. It says they request the planning board, which is not us, condition any approval on the issuance of an assent from NEP. NEP being National Grid's parent company, New England Power Company, which I think it used to be called. And I don't know if you guys caught this, but what Mr. Goodell was saying is that in the Act 250 process, because of National Grid's position, they're going to have to approve this anyway. And so what National Grid is asking for us to do is somewhat redundant with what's going to happen down the line. I just thought we should address that because it's an unusual situation. I've not seen this before. Brian, do you want to comment any further, or is that, did I manage to accurately state that?
Yes, we don't want to give them the ability to approve. We're not going to hand over our approval to a third party, but certainly you could authorize minor amendments.
I mean, we could, but that's essentially what they're asking us to do, and I'm disinclined to do it. But that's one of the things that's in play here.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes,
Mr. Chair, since I'm a new member of this board,
Yes.
the applicant is coming to us sort of as the first step, and they're following the proper procedure. I'm going to go to the Development Review Board, get their approval, and then therefore I can go through the Act 250 process.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine you guys have already started your Act 250.
We have not submitted.
Oh, okay.
But we will be submitting very shortly.
Right.
And it's helpful to have your local approval done. It's not a requirement, but it's helpful.
Okay.
And just on the power company's concern, we are going to reach a resolution with them because we have to through the Act 250 process. They have a line item in that process for transmission facilities and the impact of your project on those. So it's very specific. So the burden is on the applicant to work it out with them, which we're doing, and we will, I'm sure.
Which sounds like what you said.
Yeah, well, I said it a little less articulately, but yes.
But the applicant
But
is coming to us to sort of get their ducks in a row before they, or as
They
they
don't-
begin the activity.
Right, they don't
process.
have to. I mean, they could do it concurrent
Okay.
as well. And we have that sometimes. I just assumed, but I shouldn't have, if they were doing it that way. Does anybody have questions for the applicant? I have to say, that was a very informative presentation. So I have in mind that we make a motion to approve this permit, providing that there be administrative approval for future building design, changes to lighting, changes to stormwater, and I think we ought to throw changes to landscaping in. Even though you say what's there probably works, it just seems sensible to me that you not have to come back before us if for Cynthia is not the bush that the power company likes, because, I mean, God knows.
That'd be helpful, thank you.
Could I ask one question that escaped me earlier?
Yes,
The fence, it would be chain link, it would be a certain height?
Yeah, I think it's 6 feet high chain link.
6 feet high chain link.
Okay, that's all. I just, it was mentioned and I didn't think to
So
look if it
it's-
was.
It's similar to the fence that's down on,
Well-
there's a fence on Walnut.
On the Walnut Street.
Yeah.
We're required to create a secure area because we're storing hazardous materials. And the gate will be electronically operated, and our drivers will have little key fobs. So as they pull up, or as one of the delivery trucks from Dead River pull up, they can hit that key fob, and the gate will automatically open up.
So, and that's where the Knox box is gonna be.
Knox box will be right by that. That's correct.
Sorry, just
no, that's good.
get a clarification.
And we're not looking to put barbed wire on top of it. However, if federal rules change and we're required to do that, that might be something that we would have to do. But we're not looking for that.
Does the fence itself have to be called out for administrative approval if we felt?
If they have to take barbed wire, then that would require board approval, so you
Board.
guys should just
Yeah.
add it in if necessary.
So do you want to say if there were changes to the fence, we would put it on administrative approval, or would it require to come back to the board?
Well, let me ask you this, Brian. If the federal regulation changes and requires barbed wire, neither you nor us can do anything about that anyway. I mean, that's federal preemption.
Right, it just requires a local approval, so you could do a condition saying that that is not required, and then permission to do it.
Yeah, so maybe the motion should be for landscaping and screening, because I think that would encompass changes to the fencing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I just prefer broad language if we can use it to something that specific. So we'll say then administrative approval, building design, lighting, stormwater, landscaping, and screening. And then, perhaps there's some mitigating thing that Brian could think of that would make that a little less prison looking, but I don't know. That's a tough one.
Christmas lights along the barbed wire.
I like that idea, but no blue or purple.
Before the meeting started, we were discussing Christmas lighting.
Okay, so does anybody disagree with that proposal?
No.
No.
Okay, let's have a so moved then.
So moved.
So moved, we get a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? There's still no public here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, can I just ask, our next meeting is January 17th?
17th.
Right, because the 15th is a holiday.
2018.
Oh, don't- Yes.
So it's a Wednesday?
So it's a Wednesday
It's a
meeting.
Wednesday,
We'll do it at 7 as well?
yeah.
Okay.
Because the select board's probably meeting on the 16th.
There's no conflict for the room for a Wednesday meeting?
Now, this happens once or twice a year.
Yeah. Oh,
It's been a
Monday.
while.
It's a lot of
I
stuff.
can't remember last time we did that.
This year, I think it's supposed to,
Really?
first two weeks.
Oh, because of Martin Luther King?
Yeah, the Labs Day or something.
Oh, President's Day, right. February 21st, right? February 20th? It's Washington's birthday.
Well, it's always Washington's birthday observed.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
Can
say.
we make a
um,
motion to adjourn?
We're looking at probably
Oh.
next week. Yeah.
Can you call that a motion
I'll
to
make a
adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Finish the year.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Covered a lot of ground during
Passes
the
4-0.
last couple of weeks there.
Thank you, Ed. I forgot about
So-
One way or the other.